ladies and gents, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl. And once again, I have my favorite person in the world, Dominick. Dominick, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. The Saints went up to Seattle and pulled out a nice victory, so it made me happy.
Always good when your team wins. I'd like to know what that feels like, but this season doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
Well, they're playing Jacksonville this week, so you never know.
Let's hope on that one. So let's start off with our first matchup. Our first matchup is going to be Thursday night's game, which is Philadelphia Eagles, who are at 1-2, versus Green Bay Packers, who are undefeated at 3-0. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, surprising to say, but Green Bay's been winning their games with a lot better defense than they are on offense. They're just extremely slow on offense. You can see Aaron Rodgers just still doesn't like this system. He's, high-fiving and slapping hands with the defensive coordinator on the sideline, not the offense coordinator, the head coach. That being said, the Eagles are just terrible, especially on the back end of their defense right now. Their offense is a mess with all the injuries, so I have to go with, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to, just muffle this team and win it pretty easily, probably by a couple touchdowns.
I want to see what this Eagles team can do, but Carson Wentz needs better protection on that offensive line, and I'm really not sure what's going on there. I also am not trusting this run game of theirs. The defense has been kind of porous. That's kind of been some of their issues. Green Bay, meanwhile, has looked great and spectacular in some of their wins. Their win over the Bears was surprising because, you expect the Bears to still have that number one defense, in particular in that division, and the Packers took it to them. So Packers is actually looking like the better team on defense. Rodgers has had all of his receivers stepping up. Valdez-Scantling surprisingly has stepped up, like saying Aaron Jones in the backfield. I mean, what can you say about the Packers that haven't already been said, other than that they're looking really good this year and could make a playoff run later in the year? So I definitely got to take the Packers, especially because they're at home. Next up, we got the 1-2 Tennessee Titans at the 1-2 Atlanta Falcons. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, both these teams are 1-2, and both of them have looked pretty bad getting there, especially the past couple of weeks. But Atlanta, we note that they are a bad road team. We also know that they're a good home team. I just think that, I know Tennessee's defense is pretty good, but their offense is terrible. And I think Atlanta is just going to be able to outscore them here, and I think they should win this game.
At some point, I know I said this before, and I'm going to have to say it again. At some point, the Titans may have to move on from Marcus Mariota. Something is just not clicking with that team, and I feel bad because I actually like him, but he's just not what I feel is the future of that franchise. Derrick Henry has looked good in sporadic episodes, but not consistent, and that's an issue. Their defense just is not getting it done. I definitely feel like Atlanta still has some things that they need to work on their defense more than anything. I love Calvin Ridley. I love Julio Jones. I know Matt Ryan can push it down the field, especially because of having the two of them. It's definitely got to be in Atlanta, and specifically because they are playing at home. I'm giving the edge to them on that one. Next up, we got the undefeated New England Patriots at 3-0 facing the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, who are surprisingly 3-0. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's surprising that Buffalo's 3-0 only based on who they played. This is going to be their first real test of the year, and I don't think they're going to come out well in this one. I love Josh Allen, but he's not going to do well this week. We don't know if Singletary's going to play. They really don't have any receivers. I know everybody loves John Brown, but he's not a stud alpha receiver. Obviously, the Patriots don't have Antonio Brown anymore. That's not going to be a big deal for them. They've never really had him anyway, so it doesn't matter. They still have Josh Gordon. Edelman's going to be there. They have Philip Dorsett coming back, actually doing some things now as the third receiver there. They don't really have a tight end, but seems like they don't need one right now. The running backs really haven't done anything other than Rex Burkhead, but they still have way too much for this Bills team, and I think they're going to win it.
Again, I'm still shocked by the Bills' 3-0 start, but again, as you said, it's just been the matchups that they've had that have led them to that start. I like Josh Allen. I'm like you. They don't have the receivers that they need to really push that ball down the field. And I'm like you. I like Brown, but I just don't feel like they can get it done in this situation. Patriots, Tom Brady is the GOAT, obviously, and they didn't miss a beat with AB being gone because you always still have Julian Edelman. You always have Josh Gordon. They're going to get it done, and they're going to be hard to beat in the AFC, period. So, yeah, I'm definitely with you on this. I got to give it to the Patriots. They just got way too much for the Bills to handle. Next up, we got the Kansas City Chiefs at 3-0 coming to Detroit to face the Lions, who are 2-0-1. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes is just a stud. He's just amazing right now. Had another 3 touchdowns this past week with 380 yards. I know Detroit's playing really good right now. I watched the game on Sunday, obviously, in Philadelphia, but I don't care if it's, in Ford Field and Arrowhead Stadium or anywhere. The Chiefs should win this game, and I think it's probably going to be very high scoring, probably, 30s to high 20s, kind of like the game was against the Ravens, with the Ravens defense as good as it is, and they still put up 33 against them. They could put up a 40 burger against Detroit.
I've said this before about the Chiefs, and it's going to be one of the things that is going to be a repeating theme. Chiefs are going to have to beat you by running up the score because they do not have a stout defense. The good thing for them is they have a phenomenal offense, and they can run up the score, especially behind Patrick Mahomes. He's got Travis Kelce. Sammy Watkins has looked good over the first 3 weeks of the season. I expect big things out of them. Shady has looked good, in the few times that I've seen him, scoring and getting the ball and everything. So I definitely feel like Kansas City is going to be, it may end up being Kansas City and New England at the end of the season. Let's just prepare ourselves for that now. The Lions, I'm hoping for better things out of them. I love Kerryon Johnson, what he's done so far this season. I still need to see more out of Matt Stafford. I absolutely need more out of Marvin Jones. I understand that Kenny Golladay is his go-to guy, but can you get the ball on the other side of the field, especially when Golladay is double covered? You don't have to keep throwing it to double covered. That being said, it's definitely going to be the Chiefs in this game. I just don't feel like Detroit can keep pace with the way the Chiefs can run the score up on you. I just don't feel like Lions have enough to be able to keep pace with that. Next up, we got the Oakland Raiders at 1-2 facing the Indianapolis Colts, who are 2-1 in Indianapolis. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, this one's pretty easy for me. The Raiders are just garbage. I've never liked, John Gruden, and this team is just a shell of what it used to be. The Colts are a very good team. I know Atlanta doesn't play the same on the road, but they still have an extremely good offense, and they were able to be shut down pretty much last week. So I think the Colts are going to be able to come out again and win this one in the Raiders' second road game, and they don't even play again at home until, I believe, like November 3rd.
I want to say something good about the Raiders, but I can't, so I'm not going to try.
At least they're not the Dolphins.
At least they're not the Dolphins. That will be our go-to sentence, I feel like. Derek Carr, I understand he got that $100 million contract. I don't know if he's going to fully live up to that. This team is it's such a hot mess to me. And they just not, they beat the Broncos. Again, they beat the Broncos in week 1, but the Broncos are terrible. So that's not saying anything. And since then, they've shown their true colors. They're just not a fully functioning team. And their defense is terrible. So I don't have any faith in them for the rest of this season. The Colts, meanwhile, everybody was scared with Jacoby Brissett starting that there would be some decline. And yeah, they're not the team that they were, but they aren't a bad team. Jacoby Brissett has been very impressive over these first 3 weeks of the season. I love what they've been doing. I love Marlon Mack. I saw a little bit of Himes last week. So yeah, they're going to get it done. And I feel like Jacoby can lead them potentially into the playoffs. So I'm definitely going to give this one to the Colts. I feel like they're going to get it done at home. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Chargers going to Miami to face the Dolphins, who are 0-3. Do they have any shot at winning this one, Dominic?
I don't know when they're going to... I do think they're going to win a game. I don't know where it's going to be. Coming all the way across the country and playing an early game, I think this might be tougher for the Chargers than people expect. I still think they're going to win it. We want to try and say something nice about every team. I'd say that at least the Dolphins are in Miami, but I hate the heat and humidity, and I kind of hate Florida, so that's not really a positive. So at least there's no relegation system in the NFL, so we can say that. I do think the Chargers are going to win it, but to quote the great Lee Corso, closer than the experts think.
Agree. Listen, the Chargers are going to be Chargers. That's the best thing I can say for them. I appreciate that Austin Eckler has been consistent for these first few weeks. I love what Phillip Rivers can do. I'm not a fan of him personally, but I love what he can do. Keenan Allen has been a stud over these first 3 weeks of the season. I expect nothing but the same out of him. Their defense, meh. Their kicking game, meh. They can't get Caleb Sturgis healthy to save their lives. So their kicking game to me is always going to be a little meh. But in comparison to Miami, who's our starting quarterback this week? Are they going to stick with Fitzpatrick? Are they going to try and throw Rosen to the Wolves again? That was not a good decision they did, to throw him to the Wolves like that last week. So they need to figure out what they're going to do moving forward on who's going to play quarterback. Yeah, I'm not expecting big things out of them. And again, I expect them to get a win at some point in the season. I just don't know who it's going to be and when that's going to be. I do not think it's going to be this week. I'm giving this one to the Chargers. Next up, we got the winless Washington Redskins, who are 0-3, going to New York to face the Giants, who are 1-2. Dominic, who you got?
Washington just looks bad. I'm not a fan of either of these two teams, but Daniel Jones did really impress me with what he did in his first start. He's going to have a couple tough games coming up after this week as he has to play against the Patriots and the Vikings. But as for this week, his first home game in New York, the fans are going to love him there. They'll probably give him a little bit of leeway if something happens, maybe an interception. And I do think that they're just, as sad as it's even without Saquon Barkley there, I think they are more talented than Washington. So I do think it's going to be a close game like all these NFC East games tend to be. But I do think the Giants are going to pull it out by maybe a field goal.
So watching the Redskins on Monday night made me realize just how terrible they really are. And I didn't expect a lot out of Case Keenum, but I didn't expect him to be that bad that quickly. I don't expect a lot. Adrian Peterson didn't put up any numbers. They leaned more heavily on Chris Thompson, but they didn't even fully lean on him. So I don't know what they're doing with that run game until whenever they get Darius Geis back, which there doesn't seem to be a definitive timeline as to when that's going to be. So, and their defense is just god awful. I can't say anything good about that defense. The Giants, Daniel Jones stepped out there and really impressed. And I would really like what I saw out of him. And he's got good receivers, especially Sterling Shepard when he's healthy, which I hope he stays the rest of this season. I'm sad to see Saquon go down. They're predicting 4 to 8 weeks. Having suffered a high ankle sprain, I can tell you it's more likely to be on the higher end of that than as opposed to the lower. So even without Saquon, I feel like if they really lean on that passing game and the fact that with Daniel Jones, you do have the ability to scramble. He is a scrambling quarterback. So I expect a little bit better play out of him. So I think that the Giants could definitely pull it off at home. Washington just doesn't have what it takes to keep pace and keep score. So yeah, let's give that one to the Giants. Next up, we got the 1-2 Cleveland Browns coming to Baltimore to face the 2-1 Baltimore Ravens. Dominic, who you got?
As much as I was rooting for the Browns this year, I just don't think this is their year. I think this is going to turn bad for them quickly. This may be a one and done for Freddie Kitchens. Baltimore, even though they didn't win last week, they still, held their own against the Chiefs. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a bounce back game this week, and I do believe that the Baltimore's going to win it at home.
Listen, I had Baker Mayfield on my fantasy team, and I regret having Baker on my fantasy team because I went with what preseason hype was, that this was going to be their year, and it is not their year. He needs a better offensive line. I mean, he has 2 great receivers, and he's just not getting the ball down the field. He's hearing footsteps. He ran straight into Aaron Donald, which I'll never understand. That team is a mess, and I don't understand it at all. Now, saying that, they've got a good defense. It's just they cannot score, and I don't understand it. So I don't have high hopes for them anymore. I had very good high hopes for them before the season began and thought that they would make the playoffs. I'm hoping they can get to 6-10. Hell, I'm hoping they can get to 4-12 at this point. And that makes me sad because I had very high hopes and high expectations for them, but they're just not getting the ball down the field. And that's a shame. Ravens, meanwhile, they lost a tough, close one against Kansas City. Lamar Jackson looked amazing in that game. He's got Mark Ingram in the backfield. That worked out very well for them. The addition of him this offseason, I'm glad that worked out for them. I think this might be a good year for the Ravens. They might be able to win that division. And that being said, they can start here by just demolishing the Browns. I do not expect this game to be close at all. So I'm giving it to the Ravens. Next up, we got the 1-2 Carolina Panthers headed to Houston to face the 2-1 Texans. Dominic, who you got?
I'm going to have to take the Texans here. I know Kyle Allen looked very good last week against Arizona, but it was against Arizona. Cam Newton looks like he may be out. They don't even know how long he may have to have surgery. It looks like possibly a Liz Frank injury, which I guess means that he actually did have a foot injury. As much as I do like Kyle Allen here, and I think he can light up this Houston secondary, which is not good, I don't think he's going to have the time because the Houston front seven is very good, and I think they're going to be able to get a lot more pressure on him than Arizona did, so I'm going to have to take Houston here at home.
I want to pick Carolina. I do, because I really was impressed by Kyle Allen. And I think Christian McCaffrey is just one of the stud running backs in this game. I liked what I've seen out of Curtis Samuel this year. I think that this team, without Cam Newton, who's had health problems over the last few years, might actually be a little bit more impressive than people are tending to think that they're going to be. However, the Texans' biggest problem is their offensive line. It's not their offensive weapons. Even with Lamar Miller going down, down, they've still managed to put together a good running game. And even without the strength of their running game, you got Deshaun Watson there with, Will Fuller and Nuke the Bomb. This team is hard to beat on the offense. Their defense has looked pretty stout. They're in a very weak division, so they could run away with it possibly. I want to give it to Carolina, but I'm like you. I think I got to give it to the Texans, and especially because they're at home. Next up, we got the 1-2 Tampa Bay Bucks headed to LA to face the undefeated 3-0 Rams. Dominic, who you got?
I'm going to have to take the Rams here. I just think that they're going to be all over. They were terrible on, they won the game, yes, but they were still terrible on Sunday night against Cleveland. They're going to finally get home. Jared Goff plays way different at home than he does on the road. Jameis Winston is a turnover machine no matter where he plays. I know Mike Evans had a great game last week, and he could have another great game this week, but it's not going to be enough, just like it wasn't last week, and I think that the Rams are going to run away with this one.
Jameis Winston has a tendency to take too many risks and throw in the double and triple coverage, which is why he gets intercepted as much as he does. I like that Mike Evans, went off last week and did as well as he did. That run game is still too inconsistent for me. I have more questions than I do answers. Their defense hasn't looked well. I don't know what's going on with that team. I need to see more out of them before I can be sold on them. Again, this is another one where I feel like Jameis may not be the future of that franchise and they may have to move on, but we'll see what they're going to do. Rams, meanwhile, that Browns game should not have been as close as it was. That should have been a blowout game. They still got the W, though, so I guess in the end of the day, that's what counts. Goff has looked good. His go-to guy, Cooper Kupp, has looked good. Ty Gurley, I don't know what's going on there. I need to see more numbers out of him, but they've got enough pieces there to consistently win down the road. So, yeah, I'm like you. I got to take the Rams in this one. They're at home, and they play a whole nother level when they're here in LA playing. Next up, we got the 2-1 Seattle Seahawks headed to Arizona to face the 0-2-1 Cardinals. Dominic, who you got?
Arizona's offense has actually looked better than a lot of people expected it to. Seattle's defense is, pretty bad for what it is, but we saw that when need be that Russell Wilson actually can get the ball out. He had 400 yards over the weekend. He had 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. I do think that Seattle's not nearly as good as everybody, thought they might be, and I don't think Arizona's as bad as their record is, but their defense is as bad as their record is, and I think that Chris Carson, they said they still want to feed him and they still trust him, and we'll find out this week. That's good for him. Also, Will Dissly is going to light this Arizona Cardinals team up as all tight ends have done this year. So I think just basically with the short passes to the tight end and with Chris Carson, maybe a little bit of Penny mixed in, I think that the Seattle's going to be able to go down there and pull this one out.
I like Kyler Murray, and I hope that he gets an opportunity to continue to grow and build. And, they stick with Cliff Kingsbury no matter how their season ends up. I want to see them try and build something there with the two of them together. And I want to see something going on with David Johnson. I don't understand why they're not able to feed the ball more to him. Maybe because they end up playing from so far behind in a lot of these games. That defense, until they get Patrick Peterson back, they're not going to get it done. As simple as that. I just don't understand how one player can have that much of a massive impact, but it really is making a big difference for them. And I can't wait to get him back so we can stop talking about that defense. Seattle, meanwhile, what can you say about Russell Wilson? One of the best quarterbacks in the league. I expect big things out of them this season. I think they're going to do well. The running game, no matter who they put back there, does well. And again, it's because you have that, run pass option that is always a threat, especially with the scrambling quarterback like Wilson. Definitely got to give this one to Seattle. I know the Cards are going to get a win at some point. I don't think this is going to be that week, though. So giving this one to Seattle. Next up, we got the 2-1 Minnesota Vikings facing the 2-1 Chicago Bears in Chicago. Dominic, who you got?
This is pretty sad because if there was actually a way to get that score, that might be the score of this game. Both these defenses are extremely good. Both the offenses, although Chicago did good last night, it was against Washington. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. Looks like Gabriel also went out with a concussion, so we'll have to see if he's able to clear the protocol and come back. I need to see David Montgomery do something. I loved him this year. He was my Rookie of the Year favorite. He hasn't looked that way so far. I think it's just Matt Nagy has not done anything to help him along. Dalvin Cook, on the other hand, has looked amazing so far. They still have 2 solid receivers there, even though Thielen's doing quite a bit and Diggs is really not doing anything. I just think that the fact that they just gave up over 300 pass yards to Case Keenum last night, if there's a chance that they actually give up over 200 to Cousins if he actually decides to throw the ball. So I do think that Minnesota is going to pull this one out, even in Chicago, but I do think it's going to be like an ugly 13-10 type game.
I'm like you. I think this is going to be one of the closer games, mainly just because these are two really, really good defenses and two very mediocre offenses. Listen, I keep wanting Tariq Cohen to do something for me, and Tariq Cohen keeps having to sit on my bench because Tariq Cohen is not doing anything for me. I like Mitchell Trubisky. I don't know what's going on with them. I think this is a good team that can definitely get more wins down there. I mean, they're 2-1, so they're not a terrible team. They're going to face some tougher challenges, especially in this division. I think this Vikings game is going to be one of those challenges when he's facing that Vikings defense. But again, the Vikings have a so-so offense as well. I don't understand where Kirk Cousins is going with the ball sometimes. I don't know why Stephon Diggs' numbers are just trash this year. I mean, I understand you're getting it to Thielen, but you got another receiver over there that you should try and get that ball to. We'll see what happens there. I'm hoping that they spread it out a little more this week. This is going to be a coin toss for me because I like both. I think this is going to be a close, dirty matchup. But in this one, I think I'm going to give it to Chicago. I just like their defense just a little bit more so, and they're at home. So I'm going to give this one to the Bears. I think they're going to pull that one out. But it's going to be a close, tough, mostly defensive battle. Next up, we got the 1-2 Jacksonville Jaguars headed to Denver to face the winless 0-3 Broncos. Dominic, who you got?
Well, everybody's in love with Minshew, and rightly so. He's been playing great so far comparative to other players in the league, obviously. It looks like they have at least some decent wide receivers coming along there. Leonard Fournette can catch the ball. Who would have thought it? We have to see what this defense does. They had 9 sacks last Thursday, which is great, but apparently Jalen Ramsey has the sniffles and may not be able to play this week. So we'll see what happens there. For some reason, I think that Denver they're mad about how they lost the last game at home to Chicago. They did play better defense last week. They were able to hold Devontae Adams to pretty much nothing last week with Christopher Harris. I think coming back home here, Jacksonville normally playing at sea level, I do think the elevation, I know it's overstated quite a bit, but when you're coming from basically exactly sea level in Jacksonville, going up that high, I do think it's going to be an issue, and I do think that Denver pulls out their first win in this one.
Hey, you got better hopes for my team than I do because I have no faith in this team whatsoever. And every time I pick them, they lost. So I have no faith in this team. I have zero faith in Joe Flacco, and he has lived down to all the expectations I had of him is exactly what he's living up to. I love Phillip Lindsay. That kid can ball out every week, but he alone cannot score enough for that team. Emmanuel Sanders, when he's healthy, looks great. It's just Joe Flacco, man. I just got no confidence in them. And then this defense, this is supposed to be one of the top 10 defenses, or at least, that was preseason hype. At this point, I don't know where they're ranked because they're not as good as what I expected them to be on paper. They look like they'd be a great defense. They're not. And I'm not having good expectations out of them. They're going to get a win. I don't know when that is. Meanwhile, Jacksonville, Gardner Minshew stepped in. The kid's confidence just blows me away. He makes me laugh because he's so cocky, but in a good way. He's not arrogant with it. And he's got good receivers there. Like you said, Leonard Fournette finally stepped up. They've got a great defense. Even if Jalen Ramsey decides to, quote unquote, be sick, that defense can still get it done even without him. I know Denver is my team and I'll love them for the rest of my life, but shockingly, I'm going to give this one to Jacksonville. I just feel like that defense is going to shut Joe Flacco down, and all Gardner Minshew has to do is, throw up a couple of good ones. It might be a close one, but yeah, I'm giving this one to Jacksonville.
Yeah, 2 funny things about Minshew, which you probably heard at least one of them. His name was Gardner Flynn Minshew II, and he's not even a junior. He just decided to add the second. And apparently there was a meme that went out on Twitter over the weekend. It said that Gardner Minshew was so manly that when he left for college, he told his dad, "All right, Dad, you're the man of the house now."
He's a great kid and I love him. I expect good things out of him. No matter what ends up happening with him next, he's a great kid. And I'm hoping that they have a good season till whenever Nick Foles comes back. Or if they just decide to just roll with the kid for the rest of the season, I'm good with that even because I like seeing him out there. He's really good. Next up, we got the undefeated 3-0 Dallas Cowboys headed to New Orleans to face the 2-1 Saints. Dominic, who you got?
I love my Saints. I was happy to see they pulled it out last week. This Dallas defense is a lot better than the Seahawks defense. This could be a revenge game because I know the Saints were 8-0 last year when they went into Dallas on Monday night and they lost an ugly one 10-7. So they could be looking for revenge here. It is in New Orleans. They always play much better at home than they do on the road. I think this is gonna be a close game. It's gonna be high scoring. I went against the Saints last week. I'm gonna have to go with my team this week. I'm gonna have to take the Saints to beat the Cowboys. Although I don't know if it's gonna happen. I'm very unconfident about this pick.
Ooh, that's a good pick. However, I don't know about them. Only because I'm just not 100% sure how they're going to do with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater is a serviceable quarterback. I just don't think he's a great quarterback. And when you're facing a team like Dallas, whose defense has stepped up and been hella good this season, you got to have a stout offense. And so with the question mark still surrounding how good Teddy Bridgewater can be, and then the fact that they're going to have to lean on Taysom Hill a little more and Alvin Kamara a little more and Michael Thomas a little more, I just feel like they're gonna win some and they're gonna lose some going forward until they get Drew Brees back. This is gonna be one of those matchups that's gonna be dirty and ugly. This might be one of their biggest tests while he's out. Meanwhile, Cowboys have just looked great, but again, you gotta look at who some of the teams are that they faced up till now. So when you look at matchups, you kind of have to be like, okay, how real is this 3-0? But the 3-0 comes in part because of Dak Prescott, who has looked great, even if it is bad teams that they're facing. Zeke has looked great, even if it's bad defenses they're facing. I love that Jason Witten came back. I think that was a key piece that was missing last year, and having him back has really helped Dak out. Amari is his go-to guy, but definitely his dump down player is definitely Jason Witten, and I love that he's there. So I think that's been helping them out a lot. That defenses look great. I want to pick New Orleans, I really do, but I think I got to go with the Cowboys in this one until I'm sold on Teddy Bridgewater. Give me one more game, and then maybe I'll be sold on Teddy Bridgewater. If they pull this one out, I definitely will move on with the Saints going forward. But in this one, I got to take Cowboys. And last but definitely least, we got the battle for dead last place, the winless Cincinnati Bengals at 0-3 facing the 0-3 Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Dominic, who you got?
It's going to be in Pittsburgh, a Monday night game, which is sad to say, another crappy Monday night game. But we know what primetime means for Andy Dalton. That means start up your Pittsburgh Steelers defense. He's going to have like 6 interceptions. I don't know. Obviously, Mason Rudolph did not look good last week. He didn't have that connection with James Washington that a lot of people, including myself, expected him to. But Juju still had a touchdown. So did their rookie Johnson. James Conner hasn't looked good, but I think he's going to get it going against the Cincinnati defense. And I do think that the Steelers are going to win this one.
This one hopefully should be an easy win for the Steelers because the Bengals are this team is a dumpster fire. Between them and the Dolphins, I can't say much other than at least they're not the Dolphins as far as the Bengals are concerned. I don't know what's going on with Andy Dalton. I don't know what's John Ross. Child, please hang on to a ball. Try, please, to hang on to a ball. When he does, he looks good, but that's just not every pass that he catches. That defense is just so bad. Not to say that Pittsburgh has looked great, and I still have questions on Mason Rudolph, and I don't know that he's answered them up till now. I'm hoping that going forward, he will be able to play better. He does have good receivers there. He does have Juju. He does have James Conner in the backfield, who he can dump it off to as well. Come on, let's go, Pittsburgh. You can't lose them all. You can't lose them all this season. And Bengals is going to be one of those teams that you should definitely beat. And so that being said, I'm going to take Steelers in particular because they're at home. That's all our matchups for the week. Dominic, give me a survivor pool pick for this week.
Well, everybody talks about going against the Dolphins, so you can take the Chargers, although I do think it's going to be a little closer than the 17-point spread that they have right now. But if you don't want to use them, I do think you can use the Chiefs as well against Detroit, just especially being indoors. I think Patrick Mahomes is just going to light that field up. And if you have them left, I think you can even use the Patriots against the Bills if you want to.
I'm going to take the Rams against Tampa Bay. I just don't have faith in Jameis at all. I know he's going to get some wins, but this definitely going into LA to face the Rams. Don't think that this is going to be the week. So if you still have them left, definitely take them. And I would take the Ravens if you haven't had them yet as well, especially because they're facing the Browns. It might be a close matchup, but simply because of the Browns defense, but Browns aren't going to be able to score like that. So take either the Ravens or the Rams if you have them left. And last, Dominic, give me 1 start and 1 stick for week 4.
Well, I'm going to give you a start in that Chiefs game. I say, even though I do think they're going to lose, I think that Matthew Stafford, as we both talked about, this Chiefs defense is not good at all. They're going to have to abandon the run in Detroit just to be able to keep up with the Chiefs. So I do think this is going to be a big game for Matthew Stafford. He should have probably 2 or 3 touchdowns in this one and probably over 300 yards passing. As for a sit, unfortunately, I'm going to go with your quarterback. I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield. I think against this Baltimore defense that isn't as good as we thought it was, but it's still good. And Baker Mayfield not playing nearly as good as we were hoping he would. I think you have to sit him this week against the Baltimore Ravens.
And he's already on my bench. Duly noted. Well, that's all the time we had today. I want to thank everyone again for listening. You can be sure to check out more of me at sheknowsprofootball.com. Dominic, where can they read more of your work?
You can read my work at fantasyhotread.com as well as rotoballer.com and rasball.com.
Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. You can follow Dominic at
EnvisionFF. That's ENVISIONFF.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all our time for today. I want to thank you again for listening. See you back here next week.